The other thing is always having to be right, and you can never be wrong. When a parent pretends to be perfect when your child knows otherwise, it can provoke your child. Lying to your child or misleading them, breaking promises, overreacting instead of responding, overprotecting instead of preparing them for life, not respecting a child's decisions and shaming them for mistakes. I think all of these things undermine a parent's authority. They lose a great sense of respect. Now they're not going to listen to you.
It's no wonder that our kids react negatively if we come across that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. When parents don't respect their kids' desires, hopes, and feelings, when they have low expectations of a child's ability to think and solve their own problems, disciplining their child in front of others, showing marriage conflict in the extreme, when kids shouldn't see some of that, making a child take sides between two parents, inconsistency of discipline, disagreement between parents and the approach, never trusting the child, inflexibility in what you we do a lot of things provoke our kids, don't we?
I guess so.
I mean, I look at it and I go, being critical in spirit and arrogant in confrontation, expecting unreasonable tasks from the child's ability, always telling them what they need to do, ridiculing their faults and mistakes, telling them how they should feel. These are just a few of the things that I think parents do that undermine their own authority, and so that's why kids aren't listening to them. But as you heard this young man say a little while ago, it's through developing a relationship with them that's going to change them.
That's the only way.
I think it is.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question here today. This one comes from a parent who says, my daughter has a way of turning whatever situation it is into an argument, blaming everyone but herself for everything. How do you suggest this be handled? I feel exasperated much of the time.
Okay, and I go back. Why does she do that? Has she been given an example of somebody displaying humility and saying, you know what, I'm not a perfect parent? Why is she so defensive of that? My wife was sexually abused for years. Her response to the abuse was to always be perfect. And so no matter what, she always had to be right, she always had to be perfect, which didn't make for a real fun marriage at the beginning. And because I was raised in a home where I couldn't be wrong, and so between those two...
That was interesting.
Oh, it was a circus. And but my point of it is there's something driving that in a child. You know, you don't move to the abnormal without something abnormal happening. And just as there's no parent out there that says, you know, my parents knew everything that happened in my life, I guarantee that no parent today knows of everything that's happening in their kid's life. Just like they didn't know, my wife was raised in a pretty normal home, they didn't know of her abuse for 6 years. And so you have to look at the behavior and say it's an indicator of something else. Why does she blame shift? Why does she always say it's everybody else's fault but mine? What is it about her accepting responsibility that has her scared to death? So how would I handle it? I think it's sitting down and admitting things that they have... Somebody else can say, I have done something wrong. That's what I usually feel.
Well, as we wrap up today this conversation about the fact that authority cannot be forced by parents on our teens, I guess, for me, if you have to remind your kids that you have authority, you've already lost it, haven't you?
That's right. That's right. You know, my dad always used to remind me of his authority. I'll take you out. He'll do whatever. You'll listen to me. You won't do that in this house. This is how it's going to be as long as you live here.
It just does not work.
I mean, it doesn't work. You know, parenting techniques that worked in one generation don't necessarily work in another generation, and this is a perfect example.
Well, as we wrap up today, as always, let me point you to our website. Lots of resources there on this issue and so many others. The website is parentingtodaysteens.org. And I hope we have some people listening who will go there right now, Mark, and sign up for your newsletter, which is free. It comes via email each week.
Comes out every week, yeah.
Lots of helpful information there, so that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is sign up by pressing the buttons for Facebook and Twitter. ParentingToday'sTeens.org. Hey, thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week at the same time with Parenting Today's Teens. Parenting Today's Teens is a production of and sponsored by the Heartlight Ministries Foundation.